Okay.
Here we go.
All right. Welcome, everybody. And thank you, Sarah, for helping me get on to this wonderful technology. So let's do our roll call. I see Roger's here.
Here.
Susan is here. Carl is here. Is Brian with us?
Brian let us know that he wasn't able to make it.
All right. And so let's see. What about Maria is no longer with us. Marlene. Colton. And I see that Donna's with us. Anybody heard from Colton?
I have not.
Is he, Natalie, is he on with us?
Colton is not online, so she's on.
Okay, so we have two people absent. We have Brian and we have Colton. And Brian notified us, so I believe that means he would be an excused absent. But we still need to make a motion to approve, to either excuse him or not excuse him. And then we need to do the same thing for Colton. So is there a motion?
To excuse him and,
A point of order though, if they didn't contact us, it would be an inexcused absence.
Correct. So I'm doing Brian first.
I got it.
Okay, is there a motion for Brian?
make a motion for Brian.
Second,
What's the motion, guys?
excuse Brian.
Thank you. So, okay, all those in favor?
Just so you can.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, and now for Colton, who is not with us, so he would be unexcused. Is there a motion for Colton?
Make a motion for Colton, excuse
Can't.
him.
We can't do anything about it.
It would just be.
Okay.
And he may be, trying to.
And sometimes he joins later,
Yeah.
so, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Okay, look at my little agenda again. So, did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes? Or do you need a minute to look at the minutes?
Yeah. Looks good. Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minute as written. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Now we are ready to go to Sarah for the playground replacement recommendations.
Thank you. Let me just put it into here so I can share my screen with you. Would you mind enabling the screen share for me?
You need a request to screen share.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Right, the host has to do it. The host has to allow it.
Now
Yeah.
you are the host. Perfect. This worked. Thank you so much. And can you hear me okay on the online portion?
It's kind of a echoey to me.
It's echoey. If I talk louder, is it any better?
Someone may have
Yes.
to speaker on.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Great, so this is gonna look just a little bit different on the screen as it's not a PowerPoint. I just went ahead and did this one in another program. You do have a full staff report in your packet. I've broken sections of it up here to walk you through the playground replacement recommendations. As you're aware, back in February 2023, we completed the inspections of all of the playgrounds which are located on city property. We did that with 3 of our staff who were certified playground safety inspectors. That included myself, as well as our park supervisor and the parks lead. With this, 5 playgrounds were closed immediately due to safety. We closed them all on the same day. One of those was successfully repaired and open. remains open today. Of the other 4, one of those was Oak Hill Park. That one was closed because this is believed not to meet public standards for playgrounds. This playground is actively being worked on with the developer to be replaced. I still do not have any updates that I can share with the public at this time, but I am hoping within the next 1 month, we're able to schedule a specific Oak Hill playground meeting so that we can talk to the neighborhood, talk to the public, and lay out a full plan for the replacement of that. The other locations, 3 of them were closed permanently. With this, our department's been working hard at looking at all playgrounds throughout the entire city and trying to decide where would playgrounds go in the future. We have a lot of playgrounds which were installed by HOAs on city property. It was common at the time that the open areas in new developments would be turned over to the city, while the HOAs continued to manage and utilize the areas. And that's how we received a lot of the playgrounds throughout the entire city of Lake Stevens. Today, when the developments are built, those HOA playgrounds, the land and the playgrounds stay completely with those HOAs. Pictured here are the 3 that were permanently closed and removed. Mandolin Court, which were the 2 rockers. This used to be a larger playground, but had been condensed as it depreciated. Summerhill Estates always was a small tube on a hillside. And then we had Greenwood Village 1. This for a while was called Reserve 2, simply because it's at the end of the Reserve HOA and we didn't have a better name for it at that time. So these 3 have been fully removed. Additionally, 6 of the playgrounds are on our watch list. We believe that within 2 to 5 years, there are 6 more that may need to be removed. The plan is to keep them as long as we can, but especially some of the old smaller ones, we just cannot get replacement parts, and we are not in the business of manufacturing playgrounds here at the city level. So a lot of liability with that.
Next question.
Yeah.
When you permanently remove them, does that mean that it's up to the neighborhood to keep control of it, and if they don't, it's just whatever?
That's part of this entire process. So when the HOAs installed playgrounds, they were in charge of the maintenance, just like they're in charge of the landscaping. But 5, 10, 15, in some cases, 20 years went by where neighbors were changing, HOA residents were changing, things become more expensive. People don't have the knowledge of how to maintain playgrounds. All of those factors can contribute to the lifespan of a playground. If it's not properly maintained, it does diminish in time. But I can tell you the industry's best right now do not last more than 30 years. It's really common for full wooden playgrounds to only last 15 to 20 years, absolute maximum. Playgrounds just age like everything else and they need to be replaced. And we're seeing that in the lifespan of a lot of the playgrounds that we have.
So the people that live in that neighborhood, I mean, can you go in there and just say, it's not part of the park system anymore, but you can keep it? Or do they say, oh, we want to be in, we're trying to fix it? Or
So that is this process, and that's what I'm going to walk us through today. What I can tell you is that many of these properties, the city owns the land, meaning nobody pays taxes on them. They're part of the city's property inventory. However, we do not mow most of these locations. We do not remove trash at these locations. We have not historically fixed the playgrounds except for when complaints came in and there, was somebody at the city that said, hey, go fix this. And so there's been a spotted history with how they are maintained, and that's through talking to a lot of staff and a lot of neighbors that live around these locations.
Sarah, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, but it might help if I get through the whole presentation, but I'll go ahead and take your question.
Yeah, and if it's coming, that's just ignore me. Is there any thought of the city making these into public parks?
That is part of this process. This is
Okay,
the entire
keep going.
package. We are
Keep
talking
going.
about the playground replacement plan that the department is recommending be adopted. So we will go through all of that
Okay.
here. We're going to be
Okay.
talking about the history really quick, how we got here, because there may be people attending this meeting or reviewing this meeting that are starting from scratch. They haven't been part of everything else. This is also a chance for you guys to refresh yourself. How did we get here? What are we looking at? And then we're going to go through all of the playgrounds that we've mapped out through the city And you're gonna hear from our department which ones should be replaced in the future, which ones should not be replaced in the future.
And I forgot, do we have guests present?
At this very moment, I do not believe we have anybody online. We
Okay,
do not have
just
anybody in person. However, these are fully recorded on YouTube and available at any time by the public.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget that.
Absolutely. All right,
Okay,
so
Sarah, go ahead.
the 6 playgrounds that are at the end of their useful life include crossings at Catherine Creek. That one we will not be recommending for replacement. And then there are 5 located at Timberlake, which is also known internally as Jake's Place, Baker Vista, Greenwood Village 2, the Reserve, and the Reserve 3, which we are going to be talking about could potentially be replacement locations. Many of these playgrounds were installed on the neighborhoods when they were developed, as I mentioned. With that, many of these are not what we call public parks today. They were meant to be private playgrounds. Some of them used to have signs that said private playgrounds, for instance. When the city owns the land, however, we're fully responsible for what's on top of it. And that's how we got involved with doing these inspections and making decisions about which ones can no longer stand for the safety of children. And we are also starting to make repairs on those that need it. And I believe that I skipped on these ones. These 3 locations that were shut down, Mandolin Court, Summer Hill, and Greenwood Village 1, we're not going to be recommending these ones for replacement. But we'll really get into detail as we start going through the maps. What we're first going to look at here are large playground locations. What is really hard to see on this map is the location of all the current playgrounds. But if you look hard, you see a bunch of little speckled colors in the background of the gray. Those are all mapped out parks. And so on this screen where we have current large parks, we have Frontier right here in this region. We have Lundin up in here. We have Oak Hill, I believe, right up in this location. We have North Cove right over here. And then planned locations, we of course will be building Eagle Ridge, which we'll show on later maps, as well as the 20th Street location, which is somewhat down by the Caballero area, right in there. So we're looking at destination large playgrounds with this map. Large playgrounds are things that everyone in the community can use, as well as tourists or people from neighboring cities. They're places that you would drive with your family to go to a playground for approximately 30 minutes, 60 minutes or more. You'd want to aim for parking of close to 60 cars at most of these locations. That was just an internal guesstimate for number of cars. So we're recommending that we will in the future need 2 large playgrounds, and these are the regions that they would need to be placed. We have heavy presence in the north side of the lake, but not in the south side. Of course, that is because a lot of the south side has been recently annexed. Moving into small to medium-sized playgrounds, you'll start seeing where all of the locations of playgrounds are. I've created a map key at the bottom to help you follow along. Red would be somewhere that we need to add a new playground to keep up with service levels for the community.
Where's that at? Is that 20th I see here?
This is right down here. You can orient yourself on every map. This shows you where we're at in the zoomed in section up here. So not every color will appear on every map. For instance, there are no green ones here because we have no active playground projects in this location. Blue is recommended for future replacement. And the pink or the purple are things that are removed, or when they are removed, we would suggest not replacing them. And so this is just a really high level what you're looking at here in this corridor. You have the Summer Hill Estate location. I might butcher some of these names. I believe that this one here is Jake's Place, Baker Vista. This one was Mandolin Court that got removed. This one is Crossings at Catherine Creek. It is still active, however, a very small playground has a short lifespan left on it. If we are looking at putting in city playgrounds, they are locations that would have to be maintained by the city moving forward. If we are not recommending a playground be put in, then an HOA could continue to partnership with the city. They could, Bryce Park's a good example, come in and say, hey, we want a playground, we would like to fund it. In doing that, we would create an agreement where they are managing a private playground on top of our property. Then of course, we would just have to make sure that it's always in good condition due to liability. So there are options for locations where we are not recommending that the city put in a public park that everybody can drive to and use. For small parks, we're aiming for about a half-mile service level, about a half-mile walking distance, that is, not as a crow flies. We didn't measure all of these out, but we sat with our team here in the Parks Department and looked at maps to say, where's the density of houses and where do we think these playgrounds should go? We also took into consideration things like schools have playgrounds. We'll be talking to schools as time goes on to see if we can continue to open access there. Moving around the southeast side of the lake, we'll continue in a south clockwise motion here. We're looking at the reserve location as well as the playgrounds off of 4th Street, which is the Greenwood Village. And this one up here, what's the name of that one? That one is Jake's Place. Okay, awesome. So there are a lot of playgrounds right here in this location. The one at the very end of the cul-de-sac that was already removed, now known as Greenwood Village 1, we are not recommending that location to receive a replacement. The reason why is it is a storm detention location and it is around the corner and out of the public eye. We want to make sure that playgrounds can be visible as a standard for safety of children and everybody using it. Furthermore, that cul-de-sac doesn't have parking in it where we could allow guests to drive in. Paired with the other statement that just a few houses down, there is another playground location right here. We believe that is a better location for a small playground and something that the neighborhood would be able to use when and if the city goes ahead and replaces a playground there. Oh, I sure did. Jill just pointed out a really good point that on the first map, the key is correct, but I did not update that on every location. Let me go ahead and fix that for this screen. Right, or did I mix them up? This is future replacement, so this one's correct. All right, awesome. I'll switch them out as we're going. Thank you for noticing that. So to be clear, 4 of these locations we're looking to keep as small playgrounds in the future. So when they depreciate, we will be talking to council to see if we can support playgrounds at these locations. At that time, we can also analyze nearby locations if there is a better location. Things we'll talk about down the road. But for now, this is the only one that we're recommending does not get replaced in this area. Moving further down south, on this screen, the only playgrounds that exist are private HOA playgrounds. This is the new age where the HOAs are retaining their playgrounds as the developers build them out. Not everybody is in an HOA, and not every HOA has a playground. Based on that, this is a large service area here where there are no small playgrounds. And so we chose a location that we think may be reasonable in the future to aim for a park with a public playground.
What about a neighborhood that had a park in it and then the HOA disbanded? And what happens to the park then? I mean, does the city just say we're not doing it anymore? Or because if the HOA isn't intact to, make the commitment to keep it up, what happens to that?
Are you talking about if the city has an agreement for an HOA to have a private playground on top of a public land?
Yes.
Yeah, so if that happened, we will have contracts moving forward that outlines that entire process. So what is, how long does the playground need to be maintained after it's installed? those things can be legally held up. The city would want to make sure that we're, making good decisions moving forward, and that there's options for both the city or an HOA to back out of contract. So that would all be outlined in that process.
I got more questions, but I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, that's okay. All right, as we continue down the south side, again, lots of private HOAs in this location. And I believe that this blue dot here is a school property as well. What we looked at with 20th Street is you don't want kids and families walking across the busy highways. And so some of these are really into walkable chunks where we divide based on South Lake Stevens Road, Davies Road, and 20th Street to create those walkable areas. So on this screen, you'll see 3 different locations where we believe public small to medium playgrounds are needed for walkability.
And it is of note on that slide that there is some larger plats under review right now for development in that section. So we anticipate them there being.
2 more screens as we continue around to the west side of the lake. This is where you'll notice your first green dot, the 20th playground is planned. That park is fully engineered. We're going through the last of the engineering tweaks, the last of the permitting, and hopefully out to bid for development soon. So there will be a playground in this location. We will have to have a public meeting to decide what type of playground is going in there. That is not fully spec'd out yet. But again, as you look at the corridor of the major highways and walkability, we chose 3 locations in this section where we believe small or medium playgrounds are needed.
What about the one on the left, far left there?
Here,
Where's that? Are you planning anything right there?
a red circle means that we believe as a city parks department that there should be a small to medium playground here in the future. There's not one now, but we believe that there should be.
Well, I know that in that area, the Toll Brothers are building new houses there, and they're gonna put a park in there. And I'm just wondering if that would, facilitate a public park. I don't know.
In order for the city to acquire a public park, that has to be negotiated, it has to be adopted. So when we look at maps and red dots like this, we don't have specific properties already targeted. Half the time we don't know how we're going to get there, but this is the first step to say these are our needs. These are the first steps of for when we redo our comprehensive master plan.
Sarah,
Yeah.
the circles, are the circle size meaningful, like small means a small one, medium is a medium one?
No, these are just areas. They're just showing
Okay.
you a general area of where
Okay.
an item is to occur.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're not set in stone as we, progress to 5, 10 years down the road, however long it takes to get to these service levels. These can change, they can become oblong. It's really then trying to find the actual parcel. There's a lot of these that have very high density housing with no property available today.
Right,
It doesn't mean it couldn't be in the future, however.
right.
All right, and last screen as we make our way to the west top side of this, you'll see 2 green dots. One of those is Oak Hill, so it's really a replacement, but because we are in the works of getting that replaced, I wanted to highlight it as an active project. Eagle Ridge will have a playground within the next few years as we get into the development of that park itself. And here we circled 2 red locations where we believe there are no public, smaller walkable playgrounds, and we think that the areas could benefit from it. On your screen here, you're seeing Frontier Heights as a public park. The other ones up in here are private. So now I've been through all the screens. Just a reminder, this is to say these are city-owned properties. We marked where private playgrounds are, whether it's a church, an HOA, a school district, just because that's important knowledge for us to have and be aware of. With this, city properties, things that we're recommending to not replace, an HOA could approach the city to say, we still want one here. here's our plan, or perhaps they want to use a different type of recreation on those properties. Of course, we have that data from surveys and can be a conversation about recreation in general at another time, but we're just focused on the playgrounds right now. And Roger, I'll call you first because I know you
Okay.
got a question.
All right. Well, the long one by the lake. Isn't that all houses there? I mean, would you have to do eminent domain to get that property?
That is not what we're focusing on right now.
Okay.
We're
I
not
know it.
focusing on how to make this happen. We're focusing on quality of life. We're
Right, I
focusing
understand.
on
But don't
where
you
should
think,
playgrounds be.
but don't you think it should be a realistic, because there's no way in heck those people are gonna sell that property on the lake.
Everything you see here could take 5, 10, 20 years or could never happen at all.
Right.
But we have to have a plan. We have to have areas that we identify as a need.
Right,
The what and the how comes later.
but that's what I have a problem with, is comes later, but at the same time, as you wait, it's just gonna be get more and more developed. As you can see, everywhere you go, there's new buildings and housing and all that. So the land is shrinking for us to get a park. So I think that they need to try to start purchasing some parcels, and just hold on to them before it's too late, because it's gonna get super expensive.
And we agree for the undeveloped locations. But where you're talking about with this all long thing,
Right.
like you said, it's already fully developed, so there's no way to get ahead of that curve.
Right.
But we can still hold it as a placeholder of, if there's ever an opportunity, that would be an ideal place to put a playground. If we don't talk about that and we don't have a plan for it, it can never go into the comprehensive plan. If it's not in our comprehensive plan, it can't go into a strategic plan, and if we can't have those documents, we can't apply for grants. And we should not ever be talking to council about acquiring property or working on projects that aren't in full plans for the department. This is like a business plan is how you can think of it.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah,
Some,
some of it's wishful, some of it's very practical and stuff we can get started on or already have in the works. Absolutely.
and then my other question is, okay, so you're closing down these, some of these, individual parks. What's gonna happen with the land? I mean, if the city owns the land and is there any of these parks that you wanna shut down that the city owns the land? And if they do, what's the city gonna do? Grant it back to the homeowners association, or because if they're not gonna do anything, they still have a liability?
So let's talk about that. When the property was developed,
Okay,
the developer is required to set aside open space or recreation space. They have space for storm detention as well. That stuff exists today, whether it's owned by the city or owned by the HOA. Back then, it was common practice that that land got permanently transferred to the city. That happened.
okay,
Okay, it's our property, it's not going anywhere, we have no obligations when it is primarily a storm detention or an open space area. Now, from that, a developer or an HOA at the time said, we want a playground here, we are gonna pay for it, and they placed that item there. And that's great, but now it's fully depreciated, so it needs to be removed. The city goes, that is not a city park, we never deemed it a city park, we were allowing the neighbors to use it for private recreation. So if that neighborhood wants to continue to use it for private recreation, they can contact the city and let us know that, and we can simply enter into an agreement to allow the same practice to continue. However, if this HOA doesn't want to raise their fees, if they don't have a bank of money already set aside where they can and want to do that, then the land can just stay as open space. Or the city can, at any time later, decide, hey, we want to do something with this. Within means, of course, the storm detention area has to stay a storm detention area.
what if you have an existing playground at one of these locations? And we have the equipment there, and you guys don't, you say, well, we're just done with the park. Do they have to remove all their playground stuff? Because I still think the city would be liable if they said, well, it's not ours, but your equipment's still on there.
That is the very, very reason why this whole process started. There were playgrounds that were not being maintained. There were playgrounds that were not safe. And they did not meet public standards. Public standards on playgrounds exist to prevent child death, and permanent disabilities in children are people playing on. It's a fact. So we, in inspecting playgrounds, deemed some to not meet those standards. They were not safe. They were HOA playgrounds. This is the exact situation you're talking about. The city then removed it from our land because it can no longer exist. And that's it. Essentially,
But we still hold on to that.
we own the land permanently. Absolutely.
And this all started with your inventory, right?
Yeah, it started with inventory, just simply pulling all of the tax parcels and saying what land does the city own? And then going what is on that land? And working from there.
Yeah, and this plan that you just presented is like could be a 20-year roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you can look at it. And so what the process is here is introducing it to your team. We started the conversation over the last few meetings, dug a little deeper at the last meeting, and now this is the actual plan that we want to move forward with and take to council to say, these are locations we do not support replacing playgrounds. These are locations that we want to have on our radar for the future. And if we can support that general concept, then we can start working on timelines and how we actually get there.
Yeah, great job. This is wonderful. I like it.
Very good.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
I have a question. Yeah, just and again, more education.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand what you're talking about, so, you know, HOA, you know, property has been set aside, city property.
It's city property.
And HOAs were allowed to go and put playground on there, and now they're, you know, some are deemed unsafe, so they've been removed. And it could be based on all the other inventory that might be oversupplied. We don't need to have 5, you know, parks and or playgrounds in one little area. Could those neighborhoods apply to the city to repurpose that land in any other way, like garden plots or something else, so that they don't feel like that they've had something completely taken away from them? Even again, short-term use.
Yeah, and that is
Yeah.
one of the reasons when we did the playground surveys that we put out, we were asking people, what type of recreation do you want to see here? So from some locations, they said, we just want an extra table, we want a basketball court, we want picnic areas, we do want a playground replaced. And so that data is valuable to us, because at any point we can look at it to say, does the city have an opportunity here for something other than a playground? That's another conversation for another time with other types of recreation. But you're correct that HOAs on these properties that have the playgrounds removed can approach us to say, we want to put in XYZ.
But not playground necessarily.
The city will not pay to have a playground put there.
But they could if they wanted to get complied.
Yeah, if the HOA comes to us and says, we do want to put in a swing set, we do want to put in a slide, then we go, great, let's enter into an agreement. And we can work with them on that.
I think it's important that that part of the message gets out, and flexibility
Yeah.
of the options for the HOAs, because otherwise I think it feels like someone's taking away my special toy.
Sure.
And even though it may be a special toy that has not been actively used for quite some time, I just think that's just part of the messaging.
Well, it takes away the goodwill of the city too, if they come in over, this is down.
Right, but you can understand, like I said, if it's obsolete, et cetera. And then meanwhile, you have these other options for other uses, or again, the city may reevaluate it or at a later date.
And I hear what you're saying, Susan. We need to be cognizant of how we message this. I think that though, when Sarah started this process and identified the ones that were going to get closed immediately, that Sarah, didn't you hear back from those HOAs, and didn't you kind of already have a conversation with them?
Some of them. There are some locations where no neighbors reached out. For instance, the Mandolin Court location, we didn't have a single survey returned. They were small little rock bounces, so perhaps the neighborhood isn't involved in using it that much. Although 2 kids were using it on the day that I went and took photos. They were very cute. They had bikes and stuff. I do believe I've had 2 HOA meetings. And that was where I did night meetings, virtual, and met with the people from the community that were directly affected. And we did talk about the what ifs in the future. So we had no promises as to what would happen, but we did talk about if the city didn't proceed with the playground, we could enter into future agreements. So the message has been there, but I do like the idea of making sure it's clear when I present this to council. I think I'll add a page for that, just to make sure it's very clear.
And we won't maintain it from a city standpoint being collectively. That little square that had the little playground on it, it's not necessarily gonna get mowed, or is it gonna get mowed?
It is maintained by the HOAs.
Okay.
These parcels where we own them, not all of them, but a lot of them, they are still being maintained today by HOAs.
So what would happen if they were upset that the park was gone and they refused to mow all would the city come in and do that, or would they just say, well, you're living with it?
The city is not interested in changing our current management of the land,
So basically.
but we do need to change recreation when it's not safe. And so if that was to happen, the city would have to respond.
Okay, they could just say it's going back to natural setting.
I think even having an accessible green space is hugely valuable,
Well,
you know, just for playing ball or doing whatever, so.
but you know, some of these plots are so small.
Yeah.
That there's really nothing you can do with it.
Right,
And that one place that's got one slide on it, what was that one?
Photo here.
Oh, it was just like one slide on it.
it was the tube one.
Oh, the,
Two.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so this is Summer Hill,
Yeah.
this is Mantling Court. This was Greenwood Village 1, which at one point we also called the reserve. This one I believe is Jake's Place, this one is Baker Vista. This one is Crossings at Catherine Creek, although the same model exists over off of 10th Street in the reserve. And then this one is the reserve at 502, I believe is the address on that one.
Sorry, one last question, I'll go ahead after this. Could they also make them dog parks, if they were big enough space, could a neighborhood decide to do that? I know the one maybe, not neighborhood has that one little area that's a dog space. But could neighbors, could they choose to do these in the HOAs?
Yeah, they would just need to talk to us about that. But yeah,
But I think that'd be another good option, of lifting up in your list of things you could do, fun things you can do,
Mhm.
but it's not.
I think that was one of the questions in our survey when we said other types of recreation that we asked.
When they come in for the permit, they get a free puppy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start further.
So Sarah, is it reasonable to think of this as that the city is giving an easement to the HOA to put something on it, even that they don't own the land? Is that a way to think of it?
The legal term easement has different meaning than a land use agreement, for instance.
Got
But
it.
yes, essentially, it's where you're able to use everything above the dirt. And we give permission for something to be installed on the dirt or used. So whether that looks like an easement, which the Constitution Park area has, they have that permanent recreation easement where they do have 2 playgrounds on city property. Those aren't part of this list because they essentially with an easement own the top of the land where we own the bottom half. So an easement is like a permanent recreational layer essentially is how you can think of it. Whereas a land use is a lot more temporary, but still gives the same user ability of the land.
Oh, did not know that. Thank you. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has questions between meetings, public or board, you know my email and phone, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, good job, Sarah. Love it. Let's see. So we are ready to go to our discussion items. The rules of procedure, the purpose and the vision. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? Or do you guys want to take a moment to look at it? And Sarah, what is your goal? Or Jill, what is your goal today with this?
So this is just provided for information purposes only. We have new members since we went through our vision and mission statement, as well as we will be coming up soon on training for the boards and commissions. So the clerk's office is working on that. So I just wanted everyone to have what our current rules of procedure are, as well as our the Lake Stevens Municipal Code is how the Parks and Recreation Planning Board is formed. So I included that information for you, as well as the vision and mission that we developed. I believe it was in 21.
Mhm.
So this is just for informational purposes. We'll be discussing it at a future meeting, as well as incorporating that training in.
Okay, so we will get to go over it in another meeting and
Correct.
Can
Got it.
you give us, not update, but when it's gonna happen so we can really divulge, because I mean, if we look at it hard and then all of a sudden, we don't talk about it again for 4 months, it's like.
Yeah, I'm gonna memorize it.
I did that one.
so
Well,
like putting
well-
it, Roger,
We
Are you
will let you
thinking-
know as soon as we know
Okay.
when the training will be, but it's probably a good idea to review it.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's when you
to-
do it, but
to
I don't wanna get
see.
it in stone in my head, then we get this meeting,
Sure,
forget it all.
yeah.
so are you saying, Roger, that you would like to have, like, if we were gonna do it in August, that at the July meeting, we're told that we're gonna do it in August?
So we can all review it and scrutinize on it.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have questions? Don, did you get a chance to look at it?
I'm looking at it now.
Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, if you have questions, send them to Jill or Sarah.
And the
And-
rules of procedure will obviously need to be updated. There's a lot of
Yeah,
reference in there to the planning director. and
yeah,
That would be the parks director. But that also helps answer some of the questions I know, even for like the absences, the excused and unexcused, I think. it's
Mhm.
incorporated. I'm
mhm,
not
mhm.
positive, actually, now that I say that, but it'll have some of, our, how we carry out our meetings.
Right.
When you said training, what is, are you talking about these members, are you talking about you guys, or?
So all of the parks board, including all of the city commissions and boards, will undergo periodic training on the OPMA, which is the Open Public Meeting Act.
Is that gonna be all like?
Can we do an online thing or something
You
before?
did that.
I think there was some online training that each member
Yeah.
did.
What was it about, bringing
Yep, the
Yes.
short local planning, yep.
It's been a while.
years ago?
Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, when Kathy arranged one at the school district, you guys were in attendance there. Do you remember that one?
Kathy Boulder,
Kathy Pugh, our city clerk.
oh, okay.
And it was a training in the evening, and the trainer came out from, I believe it was MRSC, which is the Municipal Research
I don't remember that.
Association.
I just remember doing something online.
Okay. So, but it gives really helpful information of what is, what our legal requirements are to hold boards and commissions. What is the, city's risk and liability, and then personal risk and liability. So it's just a good refresher course. So they do that from time to time, and they do, and I know before we had all the boards and commissions and the council and everybody. So
Okay. All right.
When can we look forward to that?
So
Next year, this year?
this year, our city clerk's working on it right now.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right.
Realizing that the playground replacement recommendations, that was under action item. But we didn't have any vote or discussion about
Right.
supporting that as a board. So I just wanted to pause to see if that is something that you guys want to vote on to support or not support.
Make a motion to support?
Second,
So the motion is to support the plan that has been presented to us by Sarah to go forth to the city council. All those in favor?
aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, There you go, Sarah. Please bring it forward.
Thank you, and that will be at Tuesday's council meeting, which is also a hybrid meeting if anybody would like to attend.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, parks update, Jill.
Thank you. So we have a couple projects that they're coming to fruition. The Art Tower will be scheduled or is scheduled for installation on June 26th. The concrete floor will be cured by then. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to walk by, but it's been in place for a little while. It's right up there by City Hall. And we will have a ribbon cutting that you will be invited to. And we haven't scheduled that exactly yet. We have need to make sure that the place is available. The North Cove Plaza concrete by the water feature, if you notice, that was extended. That was in response to kind of a design issue where there was water that kiddos would play and then come out and then they would drip on that. So we had kind of a combination of a lot of traffic in that area plus saturated soil, and it was kind of muddy. So, so Parks Department put in an extension of that concrete to keep the water where it's supposed to be and the grass absolutely in where it's supposed to be. The Davies low profile dock was installed, and it is south of the south loading dock for where you launch your boats. So you can access it from the loading dock for boats there. As a reminder, we're just putting this out into the community. It's for non-motorized, so so boats will still line up at on the loading dock where the fleets are, so that they can.
Is there different buoys to mark where these people come in and out of? Because you got the motorboats coming in and.
So the entire area has buoys that keep lake traffic out of the area.
Okay.
And then because there's such a separation between the two docks, the motorboats will go in the same way and then the non-motorized would be. And they used to just share the same dock, but this will allow them to take off.
Better idea.
Capital projects, Cedarwood Clubhouse, I know we talked about that. We were allotted some budget for that. We will begin design work for a community recreation center.
So they decided that it's gonna be torn down or they just gonna remodel it?
I
They don't know
believe
yet.
I don't think they made an official decision.
Looking forward to that one. We need something like that.
We are really excited. Of course, all of it depends on budget and when the contracts, we've been awarded the money, but we haven't gone into contract. There will be a little bit of pause. Eagle Ridge Phase 2, the concept design work for the park improvements has been completed. The next steps will be to hire an engineering firm and construction documents. We are still awaiting our Land and Water Conservation Grant contract. We have worked with a wetland consultant to have the wetlands and the buffers marked or noted in a report. So we believe that will allow us at least to get into grant contract.
Is there any more chatter about BMX park in the Eagle Ridge?
There hasn't. And this project is just on the upland portions of it. Yeah. It's consistent with the master plan that was done in 2010.
The cost of that part and then connecting to sewer is pretty high.
Correct, well, right now we don't have sewer in that area yet.
Right.
So any restroom that would be in there would not be a sewer dependent restroom.
Right.
But with the cost of the park itself, we don't know exactly. We haven't received our engineers.
What I'm suggesting is you take the cost of 5 or 6 porta potties and then look at the cost of the sewer.
Well, we will have running water on the site. We will have toilets and flushing toilets, but we will either be using septic design or we'll be doing there's some new technology out there. But
Originally, when they looked at that, it was extremely expensive.
correct.
And you can get 20 years of porta potties and
Yeah,
whatever the cost is.
right.
So
But the sewer lines do run up there.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, which is, of course, what it costs. If the sewer was in the street already, it'd be really easy. But because it's not there, we have to look at some creative solutions. The size of this park is obviously, as you well know, it's the largest city-owned park that we have. So it's not one that we would want to not have restrooms. Flushing.
Especially more people start going there.
Yeah. We will be bringing back some playground information to have you look through and get some public comment on. Because we haven't decided on the actual playground. We have a lot of conceptual ideas that are even natural, but we want to.
Is that same with the amphitheater too? Is there a design that's been decided on or
No.
not? Okay.
We know it'll be a natural feel. That whole park, we want to keep it as a
Right.
natural feel. That's come through on all of our public comments, you know, that are overarching on our public comments. The amphitheater, we would want, the location of it will have large trees behind it. So we really want it to blend, you know.
You should have no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that would be-
Yeah, good luck with
Yeah.
that.
You're eating
I'll say-
Yeah.
Well, some of the programming there actually might benefit from having, you know, some infrastructure. Yeah, I think that was the idea of it. That we, you know, probably not.
Right.
But-
Okay.
Yes, so, on to Frontier Heights Phase 2, the engineering and construction documents are in progress. So, and that's for the second phase, which will be installing the turf multi-use, sports field and parking, the Century Garden and, the viewing labyrinth pickleball courts as well.
They
I
got
have a,
couple boards or one?
Or,
Oh, four, okay, nice.
I have a quick question, Jill. When we say that we're putting in athletic fields, does that mean baseball diamonds, baseball backstop, or is it just like for soccer, open space?
the current design will be a synthetic multi-purpose field. So it will have stripes for soccer, lacrosse, baseball. It'll be a multi-use. You can, a great example of one is gonna be like Phil Johnson Fields. Those are in Everett. And those
Okay.
have all sports on the same field. They're just
Oh, neat.
striped differently.
Yeah, Leonardale is the same way. They've got two big fields that are all striped and they have baseball.
And Monroe has a couple.
Okay, great.
Sunset Park is out for bid. I don't know if anyone saw that, but we expect our bid opening this week. We're pretty
Okay.
excited on that. So we'll have an idea of when that will be, when the ground will actually start moving. So we're excited for that. The park will be closed
Right.
for the summer this year. 20th Street Ball Fields and Dog Park, the project, you guys have seen it and I'm aware of it, but it is expected to be under construction this year as well. We're wrapping up the final parts, as Sarah mentioned, of acquisition, permitting.
Did the dog park situation finally resolved? Okay, good.
Trying to pass that too.
Yeah. That a big,
So
that's a
if
sticking.
you remember the last time that we brought it to you, we had increased the vegetative buffer
Oh, okay,
from the neighbors that would be bordering the dog park. So Lake Stevens Farmers Market returned last week, as you all know, I'm sure you drove by it today. The Pride on the Lake Festival is June 24th at Lending Park. Lake Stevens Health and Wellness Festival will be June 25th at North Cove Park. Old Fashioned 4th of July on the lake will be July 4th at North Cove Park. Music in the park will be going on with the market, and not every single Wednesday, but they're taking a
So the music in the park, are you guys setting the menu for the bands that play, or do you have a commission that's gonna?
Arts and
You guys
the
gonna-
foundation.
Okay,
So, and their first event will be July 12th.
what's on the menu, Carl?
Star Spangled Banner.
Well,
Every night.
And then then you turn the page for more.
okay, more to come.
Aquafest is going to be back downtown, and that is going to be July 21st this year.
Still no circus or no rides.
There are no rides.
You think they'll ever
This-
go back to rides or?
I think they're trying, so they're trying to secure one. They were never making the decision not to. It was just circumstantial because
When Aquafest is the 23rd, so
Yeah, it's the last full weekend in July, so I believe it
Oh,
falls on
July.
the 20, or
Yeah.
it starts on the 23rd this year.
Yeah, there was was there a typo or something that looked like it was a week long? Somebody was asking me about that. I said, no, it's just usual.
In the newsletter, we did have 2 date errors. So the first date error was the yard sale was listed as a Sunday, Monday, even though it was a Saturday, Sunday. And then Aquafest was listed for an entire week, but no, they are not expanding to an entire week. It is just that 3-day weekend. We did issue a correction on dates, but I know that doesn't get to everyone, especially this time because things were hard nailed.
And I don't know that it's July 23rd, actually.
I think it's the next weekend.
July
It's always
20th.
the.
I was gonna say, you know, for it's so close. I think it's July
28th.
28th. I think it's like, excuse me. And we shut down our, you know, open our window for the events for that entire week. So sometimes that so on everyone's calendar at the city, it'll be the entire week.
Yeah.
It's like, it's Aquafest because we know they start to load in on that Monday. So
That we have amusements that could be going on.
yeah. I apologize for that. Movies in the Park are August 4th and August 18th.
Yeah.
The first one is Marcel the Shell with the Shoes On.
That is so quirky.
I've never watched it, I'm really excited.
It's just kind of, it's very zen like. Yeah.
And that's gonna be at Lundeen, and then we're gonna do our first ever movie at the park at Frontier. And that will be August 18th, and their neighborhood is bringing out some entertainment and some amenities there, and we're gonna play hook.
that's August 8th,
August
18th.
18th.
That's good. That's good to see that community know that park is starting, because it used to just be, you know, everyone did what they wanted without a control.
Yeah, their HOA has been really
Good.
connected with the city and
I
really
think it has a
eager
lot
to
to do with-
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Are you in touch with the HOA for them to get the word out what's happening?
Absolutely, and they're gonna participate in the event. The August 4th event at Lundeen with Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is in conjunction with the Lake Stevens Film Festival.
Ah,
So we're excited for that too. And then Theater in the Park is returning August 6th and 13th up at Eagle Ridge.
What was it?
August,
No, I mean the movie.
it's theater, and I know, I think that one is The Taming of the Shrew, and I cannot remember what the other one is right now.
That's Lundeen.
Those are both up at Eagle Ridge.
Oh, Eagle Ridge.
The performers prefer Eagle Ridge because it's quiet.
Interesting.
What are the dates?
August 6th and 13th.
And those are all printed on the last page of the staff report, just so you know that you have. Oh,
good.
That is all I have for Park Septic.
all right. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Jill. Okay, now I'm going to go to board reports. Carl, do you have anything you want to share with us, like a foundation or anything?
Well, with the foundation, we're doing every other farmer's markets, trying to raising money through the fish sale. The metal fish that will go on the water adventure, no, why can't I say, what is it?
The water feature at
Water
Norfolk.
feature.
Carl Johnson Waterfield.
No, that's not. I put my grandfather on.
That is.
Yeah,
Good for you.
he's gone right now.
That's a good,
But we're working on, we got the water tower thing, which will be fun to have in addition. And there's several other projects that we're raising funds for, but that's about it.
Are they gonna keep that water tower like, you know, like a regular water tower? They're gonna put a bunch of paint
No,
and stuff? Just
It could be in cement, but it's gonna be a structure,
yeah, it's not gonna have-
an open structure.
Okay, it's not gonna have like ads for companies or anything
No.
like that.
Well, unless you start selling insurance, maybe we can.
No.
all right. Roger, do you have anything?
No, I just want to thank Sarah for going through this replacement playground thing, because to me, it was really boggling my mind, because it's like, what do you do with this, what do you do with that, but I consider everything.
Yeah, if any other questions, just let us know. It's a lot of information. There's a lot of moving parts and
Yeah.
You go,
there's no.
you guys have done a lot of work. Man,
But no, I don't have anything.
All right, Susan?
Nothing constructive to offer, but a question on our really cool reader board things that we have. I know we've got stuff posted up there for like jobs, and things like that. Are you posting, maybe I'm just missing it, some of the entertainment-y stuff coming up, like the theaters, it's just rolling through, maybe I just didn't see it.
So what we have done is we have just put city sponsored events, as you can imagine, there's a lot of events that go on that city.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of stuff that we just all wrote down.
But yes, we
Yeah.
do, we with not too much seat time and not too little lead time. I don't know, 6 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and I know
Oh,
there's
there's
still
still
be more
more
discussion
down
down
there
there,
by
but you put on there, because there's more requesting.
Yeah, they've got little digital things on there, is that,
It's Lundin Park, so,
it's got one too,
oh, the other one by the church.
yeah.
Yes, by the
Okay,
district.
okay.
And we put messaging on all of them.
Right.
And all the different departments, have, if they're hiring at the police department or if there's an upcoming meeting with the mayor, so they cycle.
I haven't seen it, but is it slow enough where people can read it?
It's a little bit.
Yeah. it was 45.
So, one note, we didn't mention is we did rehire our recreation specialist. Her name's Tanya and she joined us last week. So she's quickly learning and getting up to speed. And then Dawn is making great progress on us having a new face to the Parks and Recreation pages on the website. And so our navigation will completely change. We'll have all this type of information, very easy to find and online. And then we'll be building out to social media. We're looking at Facebook, Instagram, and I think one of the other platforms as well.
Was this a new gal? Cause there was someone else. wasn't there?
Yeah, it was at a meeting.
Yep, Jessica had taken another job and departed as a recreation
She was the one
specialist.
from-
and just opened.
She was the one from that worked in the Seattle Parks Board.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was trying to tell you.
Oh.
She was sitting right next to you.
I thought you meant a Parks Board member.
No,
Okay, that makes more sense.
Clears up. I couldn't figure out the name had changed or something. Okay.
All right, Marlene?
The only thing I have to add is I've gone to visit my grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I've gone to a couple other parks in the Santa Rosa area of California. And I've seen a couple interesting park amenities. One was a little zip line. The kids climb up a little circular thing and then you hang from it and it zips you down to the other end slowly. I mean, not, not at a big angle, just a little angle.
Flat.
It's quite
they used to
fun.
have,
The kids-
they used to have that at Country Village in Bothell,
Mhm.
with zip line.
I love it.
Yeah, this was just one that's maybe, I don't know, 15 feet long and high enough that an adult can reach it and not, and hang your child up there if you want. But it was, yeah, and a couple of crawl around little connections. They were like a wiggly bridge. It's fun for kids. Even my great granddaughter crawled over it at 1 year old and down the slide and all. So there's a lot of real interesting things out there that we could put in for smaller children, which tend to rot to these parks a lot. In some of the small parks.
Nice.
That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Marlene. Don, you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. I have a question. So now that we have Marie had to depart because she's moving or has moved, and so we have an open board position, and what is the plan to fill that position?
Well, generally, our city clerk would advertise the position. All of the boards and commissions are through the city clerk.
So do we need to take any action to say we'd like her to do that, or?
I don't believe we've done that in the past.
Well, you gotta make the board. I mean, we have that extra seat. You can't just You know, so I don't think you need to advertise it. Or make a vote on it, I should say, because it's part of the deal. It's another seat.
It's part of the normal process, I believe, whenever a seat is vacant, that the clerks work on it.
Okay,
But when it is announced, do you want us to just email everybody so that this whole board is aware and you can recommend if you know anybody, spread the word?
yeah, I'd love that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Done.
okay. Well, I don't see any other business before us. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Good to see everyone. Thank you, Sarah and Jill.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Bob.
You ladies work really hard. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye.
First